All right, looks like we've got most of the folks joined today. Thank you for joining our exciting webinar today. Myself and a team of my coworkers are going to present to you some of the new stuff that's been released in Transact 2022.1, and we're excited to give you an overview. My name's Steve Bowles, and I run strategy and evangelism for Ephesoft. And today I'm joined by Dave McNeil and Josh Collins, both from our product team, and John Endell, who's going to actually show you a demo and give you an overview of the new features that we're going to show you in this current release. If you're not familiar with Ephesoft, we're a leader in the intelligent document processing space who've been around for about 10 years and have over 1,000 customers. We've got some great technology and channel partners throughout the globe. And our goal is to constantly be on the cutting edge and provide efficiency in your document processing efforts. We've got all different types of customers, from large Fortune 500s down to small organizations that use us for all types of different things, from invoice processing to contract processing. Just about any type of document data extraction and automation, we can help you out, and most of our customers use us throughout their organization. So what are we going to talk about today? Today, we're looking at 2022.1. We've got some amazing features. One of the top pieces of this release that we'll cover in depth is the Semantik AI Engine. We'll talk about some of that computer vision and how it's used, and the different features that it drives within Transact. We've got some iPaaS connectors that we've built that'll help you integrate with enterprise type customers. Things around PDF, cloud OCR, and enabling Google through the cloud. And then we've got some other features that we'll talk about at the end around extraction and AI table rule builder that'll round out the solution and give you some power when you're processing documents with tables. So if we get into the meat of the presentation, the past focus of Ephesoft was to be the best intelligent document processing platform that we could be. And there's typically, when you look at the past and how we process documents, there's three components to that intelligent document process. There's classification, so bring in documents, identify them. If there's more than one document in a packet, we split those up. And then once we have identified the document and separated them and split them, then we extract data based on rules or our understanding of the document. And ultimately that drives context, whether it be in a workflow process, an RPA process, whether we're just dropping those documents that we've classified, separated, and extracted into a document data repository. That context is the final step that we want to drive. Oops. And that traditional IDP flow, it works. And it's a traditional setup process, usually performed by the customer or a partner that does the professional services, where we build out the doc types, right, for classification. We build out the fields for those particular doc types. Once we've done that, we continue with configuration. Typical setup, boom, boom, boom. So before we get into the new technology, we'll go ahead and do a poll real quick. And the first poll is AI-based computer vision technology something that your company is currently investing in? We'll go ahead and launch that poll. So if you can take a minute and go ahead and vote, be great, and I'll give you some of the results. So it looks like a lot of the folks on the call are investing in it, but there's quite a few that either are considering or don't know much about it, and I'm guessing that's why you're here on this particular call. So we'll go ahead and end that, share the results with you so you can take a peek. Okay. Let's go ahead and move on. So we talked about that traditional document flow, and what we've seen over the past few years is we've had customers ask us, hey, this known stuff is great. I tie it to my process. I have invoices, I have correspondence that comes into my digital mailroom. I process it, I extract known data, and I output it. Okay, very rigid process. But a lot of the business processes today have unknown documents. There might be trailing documents that come in, or they could have a digital mailbox that's receiving inbound documents from customers that are opening accounts. And we've seen this need for this adaptive, universal type of AI document processing that doesn't need to be configured. That can interpret those documents automatically and process them. And as we started to build out this technology for this adaptive type of use case, we saw that we could still use these traditional feature sets like manual data entry, templates, pattern matching, and static AI to do those process-based functions. But if we could provide the ability to process unknown documents and derive meaning and context, we could open things up to a whole new set of use cases, things like data and analytics use cases, business intelligence. We're extracting data from documents and maybe providing it to a business team or a data science team. This is what we'll show you today in the demo, and we'll talk about in the next few slides, which is our Semantik AI. So our Semantik AI Engine is a document vision AI technology, and it's proprietary. We've built it. And essentially, we look at documents the way humans would. We take a quick look, and from our training of the model and the understanding of the AI, it knows where to look for data of interest. So it'll take a peek. In this case, this is a German invoice. I don't speak German, and most people on the call don't, but with this technology, it knows where that data of interest will sit from all the invoices it's seen. It'll zoom in and then extract that metadata automatically without ever seeing this invoice before. So this adaptive type of technology has almost zero configuration, but it provides great power from a data extraction and gives you the ability to process information from those unknown documents that we mentioned. So to kind of get your gears turning, and John will show some of this in the demo as we get towards the end of the webinar, there's 4 core use cases that the product folks on the call evolved over time as we talk to customers and partners. The first one is what we call exploration. Take, for example, a company that acquires another company, and there's 10 gig of PDF documents in a particular directory, and you don't know what's in there. And you want to make some sense and extract some data out of those documents. This gives you that discovery capability where you can go in, harvest those documents, bring them in with minimal configuration, and start to glean meaning and identify the types of documents that you've gotten, the types of data that you could extract that's of value from those PDFs. The second one is simple data extraction. Let's say you've got a project that you need to get done. You want to extract and correlate data from, let's say, claims documents, but you're not quite sure what type of information exists on that, whether it's a claim number or a social security number or some type of other tracking number. You can quickly set up document automation to go in and extract that data and provide it, and then start to correlate the documents. The third one is supporting and trailing documentation. We see this a lot, not only in accounts payable, where an invoice might come in and supporting documentation comes in behind it, but it might be all different types of formats. One of the examples that we talked about recently was an insurance account opening type of workflow, where the customer is going to send in all types of documents, maybe documents about business revenue and documents about maybe commercial property that they own, right? You never know what you're going to get, and you want to process that, extract data, but it could be in a wide variety of formats that you just don't know, and you don't want to reconfigure the system every single time. So that supporting trailing type of document use case, which John will show you, is also very, very useful. And then finally, what you'll see in our document Design Accelerator is a lot of our partners and customers have a high number of forms or a high number of documents. And to manually configure all that makes it cost prohibitive to implement the solutions for different types of use cases. With Document Design Accelerator, we can ingest all those fields automatically based on the AI and auto configure our product. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the next few slides. So we'll do our second poll. And my question for you is, now that you kind of have a feel for unknown documents and the power that our AI can bring to the table, how many of you have use cases or handle those types of documents that come in that are unknown or of such a wide variety that you've got a human in the loop that's constantly processing? We'll go ahead and launch that poll. Be interesting to see the feedback here. Oh, wow. We're talking 80% or so have these unknown document type of use cases. So everybody's voted. So let's end the poll, share the results, which are pretty interesting. Guys on the panel, it looks like 70% of the folks online have these types of use cases that they'd like to be able to tackle. And on this note and on this slide, I'll pass it off to our product folks. Josh, I think you're up next.
Thanks, Steve. Hi, everybody. My name is Josh Collins. I'm a senior product manager here at Ephesoft. You're right, that poll is the perfect setup for what I want to talk to you about now. The first feature that I wanted to, the new feature in 2022.1 that I want to discuss with you is what we call universal document automation. And it's aimed squarely at this challenge of unknown documents and using our Semantik AI Engine to process documents in new ways. Steve kind of queued it up for us already. You know, when we think about universal document automation and what challenges we're trying to solve here, we've got a lot in Transact already about how we can process those known documents, the ones that we're familiar with and that we've been handling for some time now. But this whole new world of unknown documents demanded a solution as well. And in addition, some of the use cases Steve was telling us about involve the fact that, you know, document type design can be time consuming and it takes skill. And that limits how often we use Transact. So we hope by reducing that amount of time and even the amount of skill necessary to get it set up, that we can encourage even more use of Transact. So universal document automation is awesome because we've boiled the document types down to one. I said document types aren't required, but honestly, there is one, but it's universal and it works for any document you bring. And we're using this AI technology that Steve was telling us about earlier, Semantik AI Engine, as the extraction technique for key value pairs that we find, rather that our AI can visually see in the document. So let's take a look at the next slide. Great. Diving a little deeper here, just offering some screenshots to give you a flavor of what the universal document automation looks like. On the left, you see what we call our batch class designer, the design part of Transact, where you're setting up your batches. And what you're supposed to take away from this, honestly, is that it's just so simple. There's hardly anything there. In terms of document types, we have merely one, the universal document type. And this document type was configured without a single field. Yet, when we use it to extract a variety of different documents over here on the right, they're both recognized as universal documents. And what we see is that it can start to extract opportunistically all the fields that it finds in each of those documents. And all this setup is probably the fastest batch class setup that we've ever had. So once you look through just a little bit of documentation on how to get the universal document running, you'll be off and processing. All right, next slide. I know we've got some veterans here today, so I wanted to talk a little bit about how this works, maybe under the hood. One of the things that I like to point out on this slide is that it's probably familiar to many of you, this kind of workflow process from ingestion to delivery that we use in Transact. And the great thing here is that we've stuck with the same workflow process, so it's familiar to our experts. and all the skills that you've built up along the way for the various phases are still important. So what we've got here are a variety of document types coming into Transact, ingested through any of the techniques that you may use already: email, scanners, file shares, etc. And then the next important step is that rather than classifying document types one by one, as we typically do in Transact, these are all going to be classified as a universal document. From there, our next step is to use a new plugin that we've got that will send the document to the Semantik AI Engine and actually do the extraction for us. Finally, we'll move over to the delivery step, and our batch.xml, again, a familiar technology to Transact veterans, now contains all the fields, if you will, from each of those documents that came in. So a very familiar process with a very new technology. All right, so let's go to the next slide. And I'm going to change gears slightly now. Well, more than slightly. I'm going to change gears to a new feature called the Document Design Accelerator. There's an important connection here in that this feature is also enabled by the Semantik AI Engine. However, we're going to take a leap a little bit from what we saw with the universal document automation. There we were using the Semantik AI Engine for instant extraction. What we've done with the Document Design Accelerator takes a slightly different tact. And let's see what we've got here. In terms of the challenge, batch class design, building document types is still important in Transact. I don't want to say that just because we have universal document automation that the doc type is dead, right? There's still a lot of precision to be gained by building document types and modeling your documents when it is a known document and when you can do that. And so the Document Design Accelerator is to help you along that path. So the traditional task of building that document type and creating the fields and creating the extraction rules is sped up considerably by the Document Design Accelerator. And let's see, in terms of the bullets there, I'll leave those for you to go through when you look at the slides later. But if we just look at the next slide, it becomes so much more visual. There we go. So here's how it works. We've got a very simple document on the left with 3 fields: ID, date, and name. All we're going to do is step 1, drag our document into the batch class. We've created a new drop zone, like you're familiar with from other processes we have in Transact. So I just drag the document in there, and that will enable Transact to send that document off to our Semantik AI Engine, where it'll pull it apart and find all the key value pairs in there. And then you can see it's created a new document type for me on the right. And it's got my 3 fields: ID, date, and name. And it's built those with some basic extraction rules. So this document is now ready to process. We're not saying that you wouldn't want to go back and take a look at the extraction rules, maybe tighten them up, maybe make them more specific to some of your business logic. But you're pretty much ready to go after a drag and drop with the basic document type. And this is going to really speed up the way people are able to design custom document types for known documents as well. All right, so 2 uses of the Semantik AI Engine, both quite different, but hopefully both will power your ability to send more documents through Transact. Finally, I wanted to tell you something that's not connected to the Semantik AI Engine, but an important feature of 2022.1 nonetheless. And this is some connections that we've made to some leading iPaaS systems. So first, I'll just kind of briefly mention iPaaS systems for those who might not be familiar. They're just a cornerstone now of this hyperautomation movement that we're in. Certainly RPA is something that we're all familiar with. I think iPaaS is increasingly familiar to most people too. Workflow automation systems for enterprises. But importantly, they have a library, a deep library of connectors to all kinds of systems, including ERP systems, content management systems, CRMs, databases, and the list goes on. what they really do is enable businesses to connect all these systems together and use them for to power their business processes. And so we thought, shouldn't Transact be part of this new world? And so what we've done is built connectors to two leading systems, MuleSoft and Workato. Let's see, we would like to take credit for this idea, but I think we have to share it with Gartner. They put out a report a while back, maybe a year ago or something, talking about how IDP was going to be key to enabling this hyper-automation journey, because we all know that there's so much data locked up in documents. And being able to connect with the organized data stores like content management systems and databases is critical, but Transact and Ephesoft can bring a lot to the table by unlocking that data from documents. So for those of you who are using MuleSoft or Workato, who are in the iPaaS world, what you'll want to do is look in the marketplaces for those systems, where you'll find a new connector from Ephesoft. It's ready to be downloaded and installed, and you'll be able to make use of your Transact installation as part of your business processes that go through those systems. All right, we're ready for our third poll, and let's see, maybe I'll go ahead and handle this one instead of passing it back to Steve. What we're looking at here is for those of you who, similar to the iPaaS connectors, are considering using APIs or iPaaS connectors in your tech stack. And Steve is the one with the inside information about how the
I've got it running. It looks like it's pretty interesting. The votes are coming in. There we go. We'll go ahead and end it. Looks like the majority of folks are actually either looking at it or considering it, but there's still quite a few that don't know much about it. So they might want to follow up when we send out our follow-up on this.
Great.
All right.
All right, thank you, Josh. So my name is Dave McNeil. I'm also a senior product manager here at Ephesoft, and I'm here to talk to you about a few more features that we are excited about in our 2022.1 release. So the first one is the AI table rule builder, and that continues a couple of themes that Josh started us on. So one is the application of AI to improve processes within Transact. And then the second piece is the idea of defined documents and simplifying the process of creating rules to characterize documents in order to perform extraction. So more specifically, historically clients have had challenges with setting up table extraction. So it's a very important part of the business, but it's also a little bit challenging to set up, and it requires knowledge of regular expressions to do successfully. And then also historically clients have needed very accurate extraction from tables, and that was something that has been challenging to configure in the past. Also, in the past, it was necessary for an administrator to define those rules. So if you had a new table come in or a new document variant come in, a batch class designer basically would have to kind of swoop in and help with that. And then that introduced or was sort of the gateway to a kind of a difficult process in terms of troubleshooting and testing and refining and dealing with document iterations. So we have our new AI table rule builder that creates rules automatically to help with setup for table extraction. It uses a wizard-based interface. And it's also available to operators. So it's not necessary to route all of that table extraction work back to your batch class designers or your administrators for Transact. And then it also allows you to tie rules to a specific vendor. So again, that's something that we found really helps with the accuracy of table extraction. And on the next slide, we will see a screenshot of the new interface. So basically, the AI table rule builder is something that your administrator can download and install on your Transact release. And you can basically invoke it from the operator validation screen. And then if we advance the slide, you'll see that a wizard interface comes up that can operate either in standard mode or advanced mode. So standard mode is what you would use to kind of walk through and indicate a region of interest and which columns are of interest. So those columns would be identified by the AI in the background. And so your operator would just be indicating which columns are of interest. The AI will also automatically create regex rules to facilitate extraction. But it's also possible to use this tool in an advanced mode. So very similar to what we have with the Document Design Accelerator, the automation doesn't quite get things exactly the way you want. There's still a method for you to manually tune the rules that are created. So then on to the next slide, another enhancement that we have with release 2022.1 is the Cloud OCR plugin. So we sort of entered this journey with a focus on handwriting, but the thing that's interesting is that it's really allowing us to extend Transact to other cloud-based OCR engines. So it's a really great way for us to stay current and give you, our clients and partners, access to the latest cloud technology for OCR processing. So, we have had a deficiency in the product in the past with respect to handwriting recognition. This is sort of a challenging thing. We've made good progress on that via a product called the Cloud Hyper Extender, which is actually very good at handwriting extraction and recognition. However, there were some limitations to the way that you did batch class design that were not ideal. And that Cloud Hyper Extender also did not support language hinting, which is an important feature for handwriting extraction. So our new Cloud OCR plugin allows direct access to the Google Cloud Vision OCR engine. So you no longer have to send your data over to the Cloud Hyperextender. Your Transact instance can send the data directly over to Google Cloud Vision. We've corrected some limitations that we had with respect to batch class design. So now we've got a full-featured batch class design, even if you're using a cloud-based OCR engine. We support language hinting, so to help the OCR engine do a better job of identifying the characters that are coming in. You can indicate a hint in terms of what language you expect to be present, or you can just use the automatic mode. And then we're also planning future adapters. So currently we're leading with Google Cloud Vision, but we are planning to support Azure Cognitive Services in the future, and also an on-prem option. So we're really excited about this Cloud OCR plugin. It really gives our clients access to the latest cloud-based OCR technologies, specifically to help with handwriting extraction. So the next slide, we have a screenshot. Not too much here. This is actually a configuration screen, but the only reason I'm showing it to you is it's also our first effort in terms of reworking our Transact UI. So we are updating the tech stack that the UI uses, and this little screen is the first one where you can see a UI that's developed using the Angular components, and also using a refreshed style guide that we have used previously for our Semantik products. And on the next slide, we've got some other enhancements that aren't maybe our marquee features, but just still definitely wanted to tell you about. So one challenge that batch class designers have had in the past is when they were troubleshooting extraction issues, it wasn't always obvious which rule had produced an extraction. So with 2022.1, there is a new feature that identifies which rule was used to extract a particular piece of data, again, to help with troubleshooting. So we've also had some issues in the past with PDF XFA documents. So with 2022.1, we now support automatic flattening of those documents. So if you have PDF documents that contain XFA data, we can now ingest those and process those just fine within Transact. We also have some future work to actually try to make use of that XFA metadata, but that will be in the future. So we've made some changes to cause Transact to start up faster. So we don't anticipate you're going to have to restart the Transact service very often, but if you do, we've made changes to get that going faster. And we've done just some basic kind of platform work to make sure that we stay fresh and current. So we've expanded our operating system support to Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8.4 and our DBMS support to Microsoft SQL Server 2019. And then finally, we've updated our Microsoft Tech Stack components, including V, C++, and .NET. All right, with that, I'd like to hand things over to John Andel, who's going to demonstrate these new features.
Great, thanks, Dave. Good stuff. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Perfect. All right, let's jump into some software. So I'll work sort of backwards, I guess. So we'll start with showing the folks that haven't seen AI Table Rule Builder. That's where I'll start first. So I've got some invoices prepped. So let's take a look at this first one here. So again, the idea here is to really sort of ease the pain of setting up table extraction. In this case, I'd like you to envision that this is the first time we've seen invoices from CDW. So here we are. We have our extraction results here. Everything that we've put in place for other vendors has been able to find all of our typical header fields with the exception of the amount. So we can just easily click on that to populate that. We're also doing a lookup. So this vendor has already been populated in the vendor database, and we're able to match that nicely, as you can see with these 8 fields that are in blue. But again, this is all about a line item. So here you can see where we typically display our table results. There's nothing here. And the way that we invoke the AI Table Rule Builder is from this More dropdown. And so I'll go ahead and kind of walk you through this process. So what we're going to do is select the invoice line items, and then we're going to take this green overlay and just resize it to the area of the table that we want to try to automatically capture. So this is where the Semantik AI Engine is actually working in the background. It's going to try to automatically identify where the columns of this table exist and then pull that information back, which you can see it did a really nice job of right here. So if you're satisfied with that, you can simply click next and save it. But I do want to show you that wizard mode as well that Dave and Josh were talking about earlier. So here's our selection to choose which mode you would like. I think standard mode works pretty well. I'd say 95% of the time. So we'll just stay with this for the wizard in this demo. So it's going to really just walk you through a series of different questions, pretty self-explanatory. It'll try to intelligently answer these for you, and then you can, of course, override as needed. So now we're getting into the columns. So we'll just say that the quantity should always be present. Our description column, we'll make this a little bit wider. And then we'll also say that it can span multiple rows. Unit price should always be present as well as extended price. So then we can go ahead and then we get basically the results. We can save this, and then we're going to create a rule from that. So, in a series of, 7 or 8 mouse clicks. And again, this can be an operator defined process. This doesn't need to be anyone that's, familiar with really designing batch classes. We're trying to make this, very high level and intuitive for the user experience. So from here, we now have created a rule just like that. So I want to show you what happened sort of in the behind the scenes. So if I go into my batch class and then open up my invoice doc type, we now have a new table extraction rule that was built. We're also going to tie this directly to that vendor, which is a really nice new addition as well. So we have the concept of filter IDs. So now if you had additional table extraction logic already defined, or as you onboard additional vendors, any new rules that are created will not influence or affect what you already have in place. Then, of course, a batch class administrator can always come in here. They can edit this. So this works just like a normal table extraction rule has always worked in the past. So really nice addition here. All right, so for the next thing I would like to show is our document design accelerator. Probably one of my favorite features. Actually, I use this quite a bit. So if you're familiar with designing document types, setting up extraction, I think you'll really be pretty excited about this particular feature. So here I have a batch class dedicated to Accord forms. If you're not familiar with these are really insurance documents essentially. And so what I want to show you is what I want to set up. So again, a few different flavors of Accord forms already defined. But what I'd like to do is set up this new Accord 4 document type. So probably 40 or 50 different fields on here, which would probably take me, hours, if not days, to go ahead and build out this document. And so what I'm going to do is show you how we can do that today with DDA. So I'm going to drag this into this new center column. So this is what Josh was referring to. This is a new drop zone that we've added right in the middle here, create document type from sample. So I'll just go ahead and give it a name. And now Semantik AI is really going through the magic of kind of identifying, all of the different fields that it thinks will be important. So we've built out that Accord 4, and I want to show you the results. So it actually identified 44 fields or data points of interest. So you can see it'll build out all of these fields. So it really, seriously, in about 15 seconds, built out 44 fields, all of which have a key and a value. So I'll show you what that looks like. So it's going to build the key. It'll build a regular expression value for it. Again, it'll change the overlays if you're familiar with this setup screen here. Really cool stuff. And then lastly, what I would like to do is just train this document. So of course, we still do recommend using a blank document to train the samples, to train a new document. Oops. Sorry about that, getting a little lag on my mouse here. Let me stop my share and come back in. All right. So I'll take that blank sample, we'll drag it to our learn area to train that from a classification standpoint. So again, we got our learning files messages. And then once that's done, we can just test extraction right here in the browser. So you can see all of the results of that Accord 4, just like that, as I mentioned, have been set up, in a matter of seconds. So now this Accord 4 has been fully built out, 44 fields, just by dragging that particular document in. So great stuff there with the document Design Accelerator. Right, and then jumping over to UDA, Universal Document Automation. A lot of different ways to really think about this and use this. And what I want to show you first is sort of that exploration use case that Steve mentioned. So idea being that we have sort of an input here, stack of documents. We don't really know what's in these documents, but we really just want to try to interrogate them and find out what kind of data we can pull out of them. So as simple as just dropping, a folder like this that consisted of different documents into the system. And then ultimately on the output side, of course, you'll get your nice organized images. But more importantly, what we have here is this batch XML. So this is going to be the full result of that interrogation process using UDA. So this would be in a straight through process capacity where a user wouldn't see the document stop in the Ephesoft interface. Again, this would be designed to just go straight through. We don't really care what type of document it is. We're really just trying to go after the data that occurs in those. So here you can see it was identified as a universal doc type. Then we start to get into the document level field. So this is everything that Semantik AI believed to be data of interest. We are going to tag everything with coordinates and confidence scores. So you'll be able to also identify where these occur on the document. Also notice here that we're using the SRE key value extraction. So this is the new plugin that's driving this particular piece of technology in our platform. So you can use this in a mix and match approach with different extraction tools within the Ephesoft platform. And it'll be very easy to identify which one was populated by the Semantik AI Engine versus something like key value or paragraph extraction, for example. Then let's jump into the interface and show you one more example of sort of how this can be leveraged. So this particular scenario is, again, going back to one of Steve's different use cases around supporting your trailing documents. So in this case, what I did is I sent in just a collection of different shipping documents. So these could all be related. So again, you could get additional documents that you weren't expecting. But in this case, we actually were expecting a waybill, commercial invoice. So these are documents that we knew about ahead of time. We knew what fields to actually look at and target. As you can see here, it did a nice job of picking those up. But notice there's probably, close to 10 additional documents that were not identified or not expected, I should say. And I'll kind of take you through the results of each of those. So this is actually an Italian shipping document. Not quite sure exactly what the title of this doc is. But again, regardless of the layout, Ephesoft has never seen this before. It didn't know anything about it. Again, we didn't need to specify languages up front. So it went ahead and pulled out anything that it thought would be of value. Here is a certificate of origin document, pretty poor quality. Again, went ahead and grabbed all of that data. So now we're getting in, this is actually that German invoice that Steve had shown. So again, mix and match any type of documents coming in. We can really pick up anything, process anything that hasn't been seen before. Even in this case, this is a Turkish invoice. So if this was included, we support that and then can pull out any of that information as needed. So pretty awesome stuff here. And again, just to kind of bring it all together, I'll jump into the batch class that I used for this and just to show you. So my universal doc type, we do have a stop field just to trigger the stop in the validation stream. But other than that, we don't have any fields defined. Yet you saw all that data that we now collected using the Semantik AI Engine. So that concludes what I wanted to show today. So Steve, with that, I'll pass it back to you and hopefully we can answer some questions.
Great, thanks, John. Well, I hope that, go ahead and share my screen out and we'll get to some questions here. So from a Q&A perspective, I'm looking here. We have a question from Jennifer Marshall. Is the document rule builder only for invoices, or can other doc types have AI rules built? I think she's talking about the AI table rule builder. Can we leverage that on other doc types beyond invoices, guys?
Absolutely. Yeah, it doesn't need to be for invoices. It can be for any tabular based document. So you can use it really whenever you're trying to capture columns or table data.
Yeah, John, that's true for everything that we've shown today. Nothing that we've shown has been specific to invoices, even though it's an example we lean on a lot, just because we know a lot of people are processing invoices. All the other features we've talked about are general to whatever your business documents are.
Okay, we've got a question from Jeffrey Harden. For universal doc types, is there a way to normalize the key field? How could that be done? I'll answer my layman's answer and then I'll pass it to you guys. Note that the semantic AI function, the extraction with universal doc types, it's just a feature within Transact. So everything that you can do with Transact, scripting, output, all those different customization functions are still available. Anything to add, guys, onto that? Normalization of keys?
It's a great question. And Steve, I like your answer. There are some creative ways that you could go about it. However, I just wanted to acknowledge what I think is the intent of the question. And you're right that the fields that we're picking up through the universal document automation are the literal field names, that key names, I suppose, that are being read off the document. Because there is no setup, there's no way to force that normalization, as you pointed out. It is something that we recognize that would bring even more value to universal document automation. So we're studying some approaches that we could marry it up with the way the document Design Accelerator is recognizing fields as well. So it's something we're working on now. Although in this version, I think the answer to your question is that we're not normalizing the fields unless you make some special efforts, like Steve pointed out.
Okay, great. Let's see, we've got another one. are these features part of the new Transact release, or are they extras? This is actually incorporated into the core product. So all the things that we showed you today can be leveraged in the product. Maybe you guys want to talk a little bit about the cloud OCR components and how that works either on-prem or in cloud. Guys, I'll pass that to you.
Sure. Yeah. So currently, the cloud OCR component. So the cloud OCR plugin can run on your premises, but it's still sending the images up to the cloud, the Google Cloud Vision, for processing. We have a roadmap item to address that, to be able to stay all on-prem. But with 2022.1, the images are actually, artifacts are still sent out to the cloud.
Okay. Any other additions on that, guys? No? Okay. Let's see. A lot of questions, folks that wanted information about the PDF flattening. Let's see. So we get a question, name and address field. I want to extract only address and not name for one field using Semantik AI. Is it possible?
Steve, I think this goes back to your previous answer around using kind of what's already within Transact. So again, Semantik AI will try to identify what it thinks is important data. If you don't need the name, for example, then it's as easy as just adding maybe a cleanup or an export script just to strip out the name and only export the address.
Okay. Let's see, and then we have from Sarah, are there any current improvements or planned improvements for classification? Questions on that or answers?
So I don't have anything specific that I can talk to, but Sarah would be happy to work with you afterwards if you have specific issues that you'd like to see improvement.
Okay, maybe we'll get a follow-up.
And I wanted to add there too, again, and this is in terms of planned rather than current, and not planned in terms of fixed on the roadmap either. But obviously, you can tell here at Ephesoft that we have growing AI capabilities. We have a data science team now who is at the heart of a lot of these enhancements that we've been featuring today. And we've been focused on extraction, obviously, because that's core to our business, but classification is equally as important. And it also is something that is a powerful skill of artificial intelligence. So it's something that we are thinking about, how we can train that new department on this problem, but not something that we've gotten to yet.
Okay. And then I get a question, does doc type builder, it's about checkboxes, guys. How does it work does it work and how does it work with checkboxes? I'll let you answer that.
Great, I'll take that one. Let's see, so in this first version, 2022.1, it works strictly with key value pairs or index fields, to use the Transact terminology. So no checkboxes as of yet. However, this is a roadmap item and one we're working on right now. And in fact, I'm working with development teams as we speak. So it's likely to be the next type of data that we'll be able to use our Semantik AI Engine to extract. So checkboxes are on the way.
Great. Ed Fang asks my favorite question. Would it be possible to configure universal doc type within a known doc type, such as an invoice doc type? So Ed, one of the things that we talked about extensively while this was being built is the ability to create a catch-all. So if you have an invoice batch class with maybe a bill of lading and other doc types that are defined, you can also have a universal doc type that'll catch anything that's not outlined from a classification perspective. Anything to add to that, guys? Did I characterize that correctly?
Steve, if I could too, I want to just, sorry to keep jumping over to different screens, but I want to share my screen because this is a good point. So hopefully everyone can see this now. So what I'm showing is the configuration for the universal document automation plugin. And I think an important thing that is related to this, to Ed's question, is this drop down right here. So what's really nice is you can tell the system to yes, we can use this technology for other document types. And then as a matter of fact, you can also kind of perform these actions depending on what you would like it to do. So we either update it only if it's blank, or you overwrite it, or just don't use a duplicate value. So, I guess that's kind of a long answer, but Ed, short answer is yes, absolutely.
Okay, that was great, John. Better to see it than to hear me talk. Let's see.
And I think that was Daniel's question as well, perhaps.
Yeah, he wants to a merge tool to match the fields identified. It's more around normalization, guys. I think the question, and Daniel, we realized that this is the next step to be able to kind of merge and match and do that. And we've definitely talked about it extensively internally. I don't know if you guys have anything to add on that. Nope.
Yeah, it's a capability that we're actively researching. So hopefully we'll have some good news in the future.
Okay. And I think any other questions, folks on the line? And obviously this is just the start of this technology. I'm sure we're going to get all kinds of feedback as folks start using it, new use cases, different things like that. But know that you can come to the website. You can go to ephesoft.com and contact us if you have any questions. If you're a partner, you can talk to your partner manager, or a customer, you can talk to customer success or folks that manage your account at your prospective partner. I think that's it. We've got some great questions. We'll be sending out a follow-up, and this has been recorded. So if you found it of value and you want to share it internally within your organization, we'll send out a follow-up with the link, and you'll be able to do that. And once again, don't hesitate to contact us if you have any questions.